All right, so in this lesson, we're going to be talking about adamant, holy transformation. Don't be afraid of that word holy, but we're going to really be talking about transformation. You can't talk about transformation without holiness, and you can't talk about holiness without transformation. So they're kind of merged together. But what does transformation even mean? Well, it means transfiguration, metamorphosis, think about caterpillar to butterfly, it's a shock, and conversion. So we are supposed to be a generation that is transformed. We live in a day and a time that is going to actually demand from each of us individually a lot of wisdom and a lot of empathy and compassion. And this is kind of that whole juxtapose that we are talking about, how truth is as hard as an adamant, as hard as a diamond, and as tender as a blossom. And so having a holy reverence for God, understanding what he's done in our life, we should be very tender to what he's doing in other people's lives. So opening up right away with Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 through 5, judge not. Okay, judge not, that you be not judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Now, this is a really scary verse for me because I am so quick to judge. I'm like, yeah. I mean, I am so glad I'm not God, because I would judge people so quickly, sleep on it, and then be like, okay, I'll forgive them. You said smite. Yes, I would smite. I would implement the Sicilian smite. And then it goes on to say, why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye? So is there something there? Yes. But do you not notice the log that is in your own eye? Yes, I do. Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye when there is a log in your own eye? You hypocrite. Remember, we talked about hypocrisy. First, take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. So I'm just going to ask you, has bemoaning the evils of our day changed anything? Why are we expecting people who are not children of the light to act like children of the light? Why are we mad at them for living in darkness when that's really where we used to be before we were born again? It's not changing anything. Criticizing, condemning, judging does nothing. I get it. I've had enough wood in my eyes to build an entertainment center, but that does not help anybody. Judging is not what this is about. This is about judging ourselves. Do you understand the promise of God? This is what it says in 2 Corinthians 7. It says, if my people, this is God talking to his people, who are called by my name, humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, our own wicked ways, then God will hear from heaven and will forgive their sins and heal their land. Like, we're like pointing out everybody else's sin. But God is actually saying, I'm giving you an incredible opportunity. It doesn't depend about the posture of your president, the posture of the government. It depends on the posture of my people. When my people hit their knees, humble themselves. What does that mean to humble ourselves? Well, prayer and fasting, and to say, hey, guess what? We've been wrong. And I think the church needs to say, we've been wrong. We have been more known for what we are against than what we are for. And we have made Jesus to be all about what he's against rather than what he is for. Remember, he's not for everything, but he is for everyone. And so we need to stop misrepresenting him. Our land needs a healing. But the transformation doesn't happen when we change the legislation. I'm sorry. Yes, get involved in politics. The transformation happens when we deal with our own hearts first.
Yeah, that's good.
So many people are anti-abortion, and I'm not saying I'm pro-abortion, but we need to deal with our own murder in our own hearts right now, and the own judgment in our own hearts. So we have to just say we're gonna change. And I know it's not fun to call people out, but it's also wrong to call the prison a place of freedom. So that's where we flip from. We're like, we don't want to be judgmental, so we're going to call a prison a place of freedom. We're going to call bondage freedom because we were so mean. No, we're going to get it right. We're going to humble ourselves. We're going to get our hearts right, because a generation without conviction is a generation without transformation. And this isn't about just changing in our own strength. This is about transformation. This is about God astounding the world by what he does in and through his people. And so I want to change. I want to change. I don't know how you feel, but I want to change. And you know what? The world needs me to change. The world needs me to be more Christ-like.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? Well, first of all, it's what we tolerate in ourselves. What we tolerate in ourselves will continue to grow, and what I'm intolerant of in myself will stop to grow. Ephesians 5, and I'm going to read out of the Passion Translations, verse 1 and 2. It says, follow God and imitate all he does in everything you do. You don't compartmentalize God and say, well, I'm going to follow him in this place and this place, but I'm going to follow myself over here. Follow him in everything you do. For then you will represent your Father as his beloved sons and daughters. So when we don't follow him in everything we do, what are we doing? We're misrepresenting our Father. And that says, and continue to walk surrendered to the extravagant love of Christ. For he surrendered his life as a sacrifice for us. His great love for us was pleasing to God, like an aroma of adoration, a sweet healing fragrance in heaven and earth. I love how this is saying, if we will lay down our lives to the will of God. And here's the truth. There's nothing I've ever laid down for the sake of obeying God that I've actually been sad about later. I've always been happy. I'm like, that was a bunch of nonsense. He's never said, put this down, I'm going to give you something worse. He's always like, put this down, I know what's best for you. I know what's best for you. This is what I love. Isaiah chapter 2, and I don't know the verse, but it's in the book, says that God will show us the way he works, so we can live the way we were made. So God is working a good thing in you, and he's doing this so that you can live the way you were made. Some of the ways you're living right now is not the way you were made. Ephesians 5:3 says, this love, it's continuing, this love has nothing to do with sexual morality, lust, or greed. Now, just Christians always go, yeah, those fornicators, or those homosexuals, or greed. For you are his holy ones, and let no one be able to accuse you of them in any form. Guard your speech, forsake obscenities and worthless insults. These are nonsensical words without utility, words that build nothing, that bring disgrace and are unnecessary. Instead, let worship fill your hearts and spill out in your words as you remind each other of God's goodness. We need to be a core of people who are constantly reminding one another of God's goodness. And I always get real whiny when I'm thinking about what I don't have or what I don't like. But when I remember God's goodness, when I remember his faithfulness, it completely shifts everything. And so I think that we all know, and I've said it earlier, that church people can be mean-spirited. And rather than use these verses to purge their own heart and humble their own heart, they use these verses to attack people outside of the church. But this is God talking to his people in the church. Now, I'm going to go to the book of Romans because I am Italian, and I'm going to unpack three things. I'm going to unpack the reality of our God, the reality of our day, and the reality of us. I'm going to majorly focus on the reality of us because the reality of God is it's set, and the reality of our day it's a reality. But I'm not a child of this day. I'm a child of eternity. But I am responsible for the reality of us. So we're going to go through some of these verses real quick, and then we're going to dive in to some other ones. I'm going to go to the Message paraphrase. Now, for all of you Bible purists in the book, I did the ESV and the Message because I wanted to bring it home. So Romans chapter 1, verse 19 says, but the basic reality of God is plain enough. Open your eyes, and there it is, by taking a long and thoughtful look at what God has created. I've got the mountains out there. By taking a long and thoughtful look at what God has created, people have always been able to see what their eyes as such cannot see: eternal power and the mystery of his divine being, so that nobody is without excuse. Nobody has a good excuse. When we look out there and we see the wonder of God, when we see stars, when we see the ocean, when we see a baby. You know, Hannah, you're pregnant right now. Is it not just like a wonder? Are you ever like, there's a person growing inside of me?
Every day.
There's a real person. Now that you're done with the nausea. but by taking a long and thoughtful look, we can't miss the unseen realm of the divine God. But we live in a culture and a time that does not want you to pause. And it does not want you to ponder. And it does not want you to take a long and thoughtful look. It actually wants to think for you. It wants to tell you what you're seeing. But I need you to step back and Selah. I need you to pause and ponder. But whenever I step back, pause, and ponder, I say, what the heck is going on? It's like our world has gone crazy. The things that we talk about, the things that I'm navigating with my sons, the things Julie's navigating with her children, these are things that we never even thought we'd have as conversations now. Sure. And they're just daily normal now. So I was like praying, I was like, God, what's going on? And he was like, well, the answer is in the very next verse. Romans 1:21 says what happened was this. People knew God perfectly well, but when they didn't treat him like God, refusing to worship him, they trivialized themselves into silliness and confusion till there was neither sense nor direction in their life. They pretended to know it all, but they were illiterate regarding life. Wow. You know, the millennials right now are the smartest generation that has ever walked the face of the earth, and yet they are having such a hard time finding their place in life. Because worshiping God is not acknowledging God. Worshiping God means I bow the knee of my opinion to his word. It goes on again. It's talking about a culture that doesn't worship God. It says they trade the glory of the God who holds the whole world in his hands for cheap figurines you can buy at any roadside. So God said, in effect, if that's what you want, that's what you get. And it wasn't long before they were living in a pig pen, smeared with filth, filthy inside and out. And all this because they traded the true God for a fake God and worship the God they made instead of the God who made them. The God we bless, the God who blesses us, oh yes. And then it goes on to say, worse followed. Refusing to know God, because you can't know God outside of worship. They soon didn't know how to be human either. Women didn't know how to be women, and men didn't know how to be men. Here is our day. The reality of our day.
Wow.
We're trying to self-identify. You know, I don't even know what we think we're doing right now. A lot of schools in junior high are asking 12, 13, and 14-year-old kids to self-identify. I'm sorry, if somebody would ask me, do you guys remember junior high? If somebody would ask me in junior high to self-identify, I would have said I was a unicorn. I was like, what in the world? I was not interested in what was going on with the boys. I was trying to figure out, why am I not growing breasts? So there is like a lot of same-sex curiosity, but we have perverted it and sexualized young people. We need to protect them. It goes on to say, sexually confused, they abused and defiled one another. Women with women, men with men, all lust and no love. And then they paid for it. Oh, how they paid for it. Emptied of God and love, godless and loveless wretches. Now, I just want to be really clear. God is never the one who makes us pay. When I built my life with untempered mortar, when I thought fornication and alcohol and dating would fill this void in my life, and then it all came crashing down, it was costly. But it was me who chose to build with the wrong things and then have it come crashing down. And then it goes on in verse 28 to say, since they didn't bother to acknowledge God, God quit bothering them and let them run loose. And I'm going to read to you what it looks like when a generation is loose. It says they're filled with all manner of unrighteousness, evil, covetousness, malice. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliciousness. They are gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, foolish, faithless, heartless, and ruthless. And then it says in the close of Romans 1, and it's not as if they don't know better. They know perfectly well. They're spitting in God's face, and they don't care. Worse, they hand out prizes to those who do the worst things best. That is the reality of our day. But that's not the reality of us. Reality of us starts with Romans 2:1, goes back to Matthew. Those people are on a dark spiral down, but if you think that leaves you on the high ground where you can point your finger at others, think again. Every time you criticize someone, you condemn yourself. It takes one to know one. Judgmental criticism of others is a well-known way of escaping detection in your own crimes and misdemeanors. But God isn't so easily diverted. He sees right through all such smoke screens and holds you to what you have done. What has the church done? Judging, envy, competition. We have been backbiting. We sow strife between brothers. We are doing the six things God hates. You know, he hates these things. And then it goes on to say, you didn't think, did you, that just by pointing your fingers at others, you would distract God from seeing all your misdoings and from coming down on you hard? Or did you think that because he is such a nice God, he'd let you off the hook? Better think this one through from the start. God is kind, but he is not soft.
Yes.
In kindness, he takes us firmly by the hand and leads us into a radical life change. In kindness, God takes us by the hand. I don't know what your story is, but when I was 21 years of age, God took me firmly by the hand and said, Lisa, I'm going to lead you into a radical life change. It wasn't a behavior modification. I began to read the Word of God, and I began to find out that God was holy. God was holy. I was like, what does that even mean? Well, holy means otherness. And actually, we find our wholeness when we choose to walk holy. I can't heal myself in my own strength. I tried to fill all the voids in my life. It was impossible. But to experience the holiness of God, we actually have a revelation that we can never be holy as he is. God was holy, is holy, and will always be holy. He is holy in all he is, and all he asks of us is to be holy in what we do.
Yeah.
I am ready for a generation to actually cry out to God and say, I need mercy. So I'm going to extend mercy.
Yeah.
I need love, so I'm going to extend love.
Yeah.
Loving people extend mercy because they know it sets up a generation for transformation. I'm so thankful that people told me the truth. Baby girl, you're fragmenting your soul with your promiscuity. This alcoholism is going to make you make bad decisions that you're going to regret for the rest of your life. They cared enough to tell me the truth, but then they didn't leave me there. They said, God's got something better for you. There is something on the other side. I had no idea what was on the other side, and they led me to a place of hope.
Yeah.
We have to give hope to a generation.
That's good.
God's kindness is always an invitation for us to return to truth rather than an endorsement of sin. We're acting like it's kind to say that sin isn't sin because we don't want people to feel shame.
Yeah.
And we need to say, you know what? There are things that we do that we feel ashamed of. That doesn't make us shame. That's not who I am. But it's okay to be ashamed of choices that you make. That's why you redeem them. That's why you tell other people. That's why David said, hey, forgive me, I'll be clean, and then I'll teach transgressors your ways. I'm going to redeem what was on my life for the place of other people. We are all, as Christians, going to make mistakes, but we are not allowed to make excuses. Because when we know better, we should do better.
Yeah.
And there is a generation that is desperate for transformation, and they're watching and waiting to see it in us. So I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you to invite this holy God to take you firmly by the hand and lead you into a place of radical life transformation. I'm going to ask you to ask God because, see, he is the Lord thy God who makes you holy. I'm going to ask you to ask God to make you holy, to have this separation, this otherness, where people understand that there's something on you than different that used to be on you. See, the truth is being holy isn't about trying to be good. Being holy is about being God's. It says you belong to someone else. I want everything in your life to say that you belong to this adamant cornerstone, this invincible God who is at once intimate and truth, that is alive, and a God who is a consuming fire of the chaff in your life, that people would begin to see this holy transformation in your life. You were not made to live small and safe and just on the edge of constant bondage. You were made to be holy.
Yes.
And so I want to see you. I invite him. When we're done, I want you just to pray about this and say, God, what is an area in my life that you want to take me firmly by the hand?
Yes.
Probably an area you've been scared he's going to take away from you. Listen, don't be scared anymore.
Yes.
Don't be scared. Let him take you across this road, and you'll see that what's on the other side is for his glory. In Jesus' name.